This is Kerrigan & Company. You know, folks, I've known the College Hype team for more than 20 years. They're a local screen print and embroidery company servicing the New England area and beyond. Now, what makes the team so special is that they have more than 35 years of experience and they do all the work in-house. I love their tagline, making a difference one t-shirt at a time. Speaking from experience, I know that is the truth. Learn more at collegehype.com. Hey everybody, this is Kim Kerrigan. Coming up on this edition, NCIS and Days of Our Lives actors. This is Kerrigan & Company.
Yes, Kerrigan & Company is here for you.
Welcome everybody to this edition of Kerrigan & Company. It's so good to have you with us, and I'm so glad you're here on this particular episode because this one's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking to a fantastic soap opera star, but she's much more than that. And then a local boy who's done very, very well, and we're all going to see very soon on CBS. So that's coming up. But first, I have to tell you who's keeping me company today. It's someone that I have known for a very long time. Not because we're old, it's just that we've known one another for a long time. Janet Wu is with me, and it's so good to see you.
Oh, it's so great to see you too. And it's great to be in touch over the years and all the different turns where we've seen each other.
You're one of the few people who actually does know me like when AJ was a baby.
Yes.
And then you come all the way through. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, you've known me that long, and he's 28. So.
And I've seen you on different shifts. We would work together late at night. I think by the time we met, you were already a bigwig, so you weren't doing the morning shift, the graveyard shift. But we would see each other in the dressing room at all hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great to see all those milestones.
I know, absolutely. But we haven't seen each other for about a year and a half. We worked together at Bloomberg for about 4 years. And I will tell you, Janet, I was thinking about this driving in today, and I think our time at Bloomberg together, of course, we were together at Channel 7 and had crossed many paths, had the same hairdresser for a long time. But I think our time at Bloomberg is where we had the opportunity to get to know each other.
Yes.
The best. You know, we were there as close as you and I are sitting right now.
Exactly.
All the time. So we had day in and day out, and that was a lot of fun. And since I've left Bloomberg and not been part of that day in and day out, I've missed our interaction. So it's so good to see you.
I have missed it too, but I look back at all that we've learned because when we first met, you're right, you were on the anchor desk. I was running around covering all different things. When we were at Bloomberg, we were learning so many things together. We were learning radio together. We were learning, I had not done this before, and we were also learning so much about business and innovation. And you were always so helpful. And also, when I and a lot of our colleagues were confused, we would emote to each other.
Yeah.
It's always a great thing when you get out of a colleague.
You got it. We turned into family there. You had to, it was a pretty intimate situation. Yeah. So, it's been really fun. So, but we're glad you're here on the podcast. That is for sure.
I'm honored to occupy this seat for a while. You've got some great people coming through the studio.
This podcast thing has been really, really fun. It's just sort of a new dimension. And it's through the years of broadcasting, as you have done as well, I've worked really hard to just keep innovating and keep coming up with new, and you have to stay on top of it. Digital is the thing, so this has been a new thing for me, but it's been a lot of fun.
Listen, you're way ahead on that learning curve. When you talk about your socials and the different platforms, I'm like, I've never even been there before. So bravo to you for staying current.
So tell me a little bit about what's going on with Janet Wu right now.
Well, after Bloomberg, I was given a bunch of projects that were related to Bloomberg, that grew out of Bloomberg. So some of them were Bloomberg-sponsored events, a lot around innovation. And then I actually got the opportunity to work deeper into projects that came out of my Bloomberg interviews, really around innovation. I do some moderating for Match Challenge, but the biggest one that's taking up all my space right now is something that was very relevant to that audience, and that is longevity. So you all remember when John Hancock, we covered, decided to switch their focus from the marathon to just supporting longevity and living longer and healthier. So they've started a whole platform of content, including in-person symposiums. They actually travel around the world doing this. There's also podcasts, interviews, in-person, online, and now I am the host, the face, the voice of that. And for me, it's really relevant because we have spent a lot of years together, and we are now at that stage where we are thinking about how do I stay healthy for the long term. Yeah. So it's all aspects of that, from I know that you have your watches and your how
Yeah,
you're
you do.
well, you're the most active person I know. You're always in the gym. I'm active, but I wasn't measuring it. So we've been interviewing all of those partners, like the Oura Ring and the Fitbit and the Garmin's and everything. And it's really amazing what we as regular people can monitor and follow that only doctors could follow decades ago.
For such a long time. Isn't that the truth? We really can take responsibility for our health. We relied on someone else, which we see that in a generational shift. You and I have had many, many, many conversations about generational situations with your mother being in Florida and my parents being out in the Midwest. And we have been, those young people who've been trying to take care of them and watching what they have gone through. You and I have talked so many times about parents who maybe were too reliant on doctors and all of that kind of thing, So we have really watched that shift happen. And so this is just fascinating that you're getting a chance to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It's and being here in Boston, there's so much innovation related to that. So I was just interviewing the people from Whoop. They're, of course, close by. And then all of that research is happening in Kendall Square and related to MGH, Harvard Medical School, MIT. We're looking at all of those things to see what may be coming up 10, 20 years from now that will keep us healthy. And for me, upright, not falling down, not breaking anything. I've gotten to that stage, skiing and hiking is like, I better stay upright. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, you're a woman who's always had your finger on the pulse of Boston, that is for sure. And we have a lot to talk about. I want to talk to you a little bit more. One of the things I had not researched about you was some of the essays and some of the articles that you've penned, and many of them are about your Chinese heritage. And when we were together at Bloomberg, I learned more about that than I had known before. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So that's going to come up a little bit later in the show, okay? But first, you and I are going to have a couple of guests. I'm looking forward to this. Our first guest is someone who has been in Seinfeld episodes. She's been in movies, and she has had 2 major leading roles in soap operas, and she's just announced one of the roles she's going back to.
I want to know how she goes back after being disappeared for a decade.
Well, she's on a soap opera.
Yes, exactly.
She may come back as another person. We'll have to find out. So, all right. So that's coming up here in just a moment. Janet Wu is with me, folks. Be sure you stay with me. You're listening to Kerrigan & Company. Folks, I've known the College Hype team for more than 20 years. They're a local screen print and embroidery company servicing the New England area and beyond. Now, what makes the team so special is that they have more than 35 years of experience and they do all the work in-house. I love their tagline, making a difference one t-shirt at a time. Speaking from experience, I know that is the truth. Learn more at collegehype.com. This segment of Kerrigan & Company is brought to you by Lucia Lighting and Design, where people in the know go for the best possible lighting and design experience. All right, everybody, welcome back to this edition of Kerrigan & Company, brought to us by A&B Burger. Great to have you with us, and keeping me company today is a longtime friend and colleague of mine, Janet Wu. And Janet, we've had a great time so far, but I have this sense that it's going to get just that much better.
Oh, my gosh. I already know this is going to be the most fun interview we've ever done across the decades of our knowing each other.
Patrika Darbo is with us, and it is so good to see you.
Thank you very much for having me today, ladies.
Absolutely.
I promise it'll be rocking for sure.
So, Patrika, I want to tell everyone, I could go through the list of your credits, but I'm not sure that we have enough time here on the podcast, unfortunately. We'd have to cut the podcast short, but certainly you're an award winner. You are both a film and television actress. You have had a repeating role in 2 different soap operas, one of which you're about to come back to. And that's just a few of the many places that you have been in your lifetime. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And let me just say, ladies, thank you for having me again. But also remember that you're going to be more successful like me because you treat your fans lovely. Aww. Our fans are who make us who we are. And I'm very blessed to have great ones that have turned into friends over 30 years. Some I've had Thanksgiving with, everything. But our fans are the most important thing to me, and hopefully you will agree with me.
Well, when you're on a soap opera, your fans really get to know you because they see you every day. It's not like a one-off movie or maybe a series that ends. So is that why you're going back to reprise this role, because of your fans?
You know what? listen, I started at 250 pounds on Days of Our Lives, and I was sure that I was coming to serve beer and peanuts, and it was a day's work. Little did I know I got that hunky Kevin Spiritus as a husband, and I was like, oh God, they do have the wrong lady. This is horrible. Anyway, it turned out it wasn't. After I aired, I had a 3-year contract, and Kevin and I did some great fun things together and had 2 children. And so we did a lot of different stories with breast cancer, with his being gay after 30-something years of marriage. I mean, the whole cast and crew of Days are family. And that's what drew me back. I think that Ken Corday and his parents who created the show wanted it to be more family. And recently it kind of shifted gears, but now it's shifting back. And we're on Peacock, which means that we're like 7 months in advance. Yeah. So it's crazy. And I have to give deep and great respect for my fellow performers on soap operas, because you have to memorize every day about 30 to 40 pages if you're in heavy storyline. So you don't ever leave your sofa, except the kids come in from a night of hoo, and then they go, okay, let me see. Okay, I got it. Let's go. So it's like, hallelujah.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Your name is Nancy. Is it Wellesley?
No,
Wesley.
Nancy Wesley.
Okay,
yes.
Nancy Wesley is coming back. You know, Patrika, I will say this. I have been somebody who's been a huge soap opera fan all my life. And so I have a huge appreciation for what you just said. You know, I mean, people who are on soap operas every day, the dialogue is unbelievable. And every day you make it real. I mean, you have done a lot of things. That had to have been some of the most challenging.
It was some of the most challenging because there was so much to memorize in a day. When you're shooting a sitcom, sometimes you come in on Monday, read the script. You're going to shoot it on Friday. By the time it gets to Friday, it's not the same script you read on Monday. And it changes, and it could change between the first show and the second show. So, but it's a half an hour. You've got it. You're done. There's commercials. Everybody has something to say. So it's very short. When you do a film, you film like 2 or 3 pages a day. We film 160 something pages a day, a day.
And Patrika, to make the storyline go on and on and on, to have the show go on for years and years and years, a lot of weird things have to happen. I know your husband, your TV husband, came out on you. But what's the weirdest thing that happened to you? Was it getting run over by a truck?
Well, getting hit by the truck is something, but I think in the beginning when we were trying to make Kevin, who was Craig Wesley, the chief of staff, that we sort of drove a nurse nuts. I mean, totally nuts, where she wanted to kill the guy that we were trying to win over or win the job from. And we were leaping out of windows, getting in jail, jumping in Dipsy dumpsters. I mean, we had a fun time there. But yes, getting hit by the truck was something else. I think also the cancer story was wonderful. Yeah. In that showing that, and especially since it's October, just to say, you know, get your boobies checked.
Absolutely.
Just do it.
Absolutely.
So, that.
And I think, you know, I think a lot of women who follow soap operas, when those kinds of storylines come up, people can relate to them. And I think they're very appreciative of the information that's pushed out.
I mean, that's what they always try to do. And they tried to do the gay story a little different. It should have been a little longer, in my opinion, but everybody has an opinion. To flesh it out a little bit more, because there are so many people that may be on that fence and don't know what to do. And there are a lot of people that have been married and have children and then find out this is not really who I am, and I'm not living life, and life is too short. So you must live your life to the fullest.
I've definitely known people that have had this happen in real life, and everybody ends up happy. And in a way, you have a really valuable service because you help normalize it and help people know that they are not alone when they see you act this out on TV.
I think that's one of the best things about soap operas. It's very much every single day something's coming in, and they we approach the story from reality, very much so reality. And it goes on a little bit longer. Sometimes our stories run a lot longer than an hour on television, primetime television. So we do have an opportunity to really help people, I think.
Patrika, I want to talk about real life for you. I know that you sit on the board of a mental health organization. And
The Thalians, yes.
Yes, and I know that that's been very important to you. I've actually seen a few interviews, and you've talked about how in your lifetime, you've had self-doubt and you've questioned, and you said just a moment ago you questioned why you were being cast on that soap opera. So talk to us a little bit about that and how involved you are and how important it is to you.
At this point, I advocate for children, I advocate for our animals, and I advocate for our veterans and vets and our people in the service. The Thalians takes care of returning vets. They may have PTSD, they may have burns that have disfigured them, and we work with Operation Mend. We give them over $250,000 a year to help these returning vets to make sure that they have a place to go. So that means a lot. I work with the rescue train and several other dog rescues. And so if you mess with any of three of those, then you'll see a different side of me. It won't be pleasant.
Can you tell us about the legacy and the founding of this organization? It's linked to
Absolutely.
Debbie Reynolds.
It was started by Jane Mansfield and Debbie Reynolds.
Wow.
And it was splendiferous in the 50s when they were both there and before Jane was taken. Frank Sinatra was an honoree, all the Rat Pack. It was just a big Hollywood thing. And Hollywood is not the same anymore. So it's a little more difficult. We've had people that have been member for over 50 years that were in their will. Todd Fisher, he gave us a bunch of stuff to auction and to sell that were Debbie's that were there that she had. We have a lot of stuff from Carrie Fisher that you can go online and find, and all of the proceeds go to the Thalians, which is a nonprofit to take care of things. And we're trying to grow the organization right this moment. Our president is Frank Sheftel. We still have Ruta Lee on the board. She's our emeritus, and a bunch of other young people and middle-aged and a little older on the board too. So,
we're all there with you.
There you go. My dad, my stepdad was only 4'2". He was with the Boston Braves, Milwaukee Braves, then the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, for goodness sakes!
And when he passed away, he was with the Astros. There was anyway. That's another story for another time. But my dad said, "You can be whatever you want to be." Yeah. And so that I carried in the back of my head, but I still had my self-doubts. And just to look in there and tell everyone, you are enough. You don't have to answer to anyone. You are enough.
Well, you have certainly proven that. Now, I'm going to ask you a question that I should never ask because this is like asking someone which one is your favorite kid. But what's your favorite project that you've done? I want to tell everybody, like, for example, you were on Seinfeld twice and you were two different characters when you were on there, which is amazing, that someone could do that.
And that was so much fun. And I play in the We Spark Cancer Foundation with George, which is not really George,
right,
but you know what I'm saying. And so we played there and raised money for them too. Right. I think the first time I had my audition and it worked out, and the second time I was asked to come back. I was filming Evening Shade at the time, and they were dark on Mondays, and so the Seinfeld said, "Can you come on the Monday?" And so I did that 2 shows in that week, which was great. I think the role I remember most was I did a stage show called Daddy's Dying, Who's Got the Will? And I did it on stage, which is now a bus stop in Hollywood, for 2 years. We also got to go to the Fringe Festival in Scotland, which was wonderful, performed there. And then myself and Molly McClure were the 2 characters that were asked back to do the film. Wow. And that got me a contract to ABC. And then I went to Step by Step from that and things. And so that's probably the most memorable, which kind of got me launched. Del Shores is a very prolific, wonderful writer. He has a foundation now that takes care of gay kids and gay people. Wow. So you can look that up, and I don't have it at my tip to tell you about it. But I did most of his shows, creating most of his shows, because he wrote for me, and he's wonderful. And so that meant a lot to me that I got to do that.
Sure.
And But In the Line of Fire was another one that now, even today, when I go to the grocery store, people going, "You should not have let him in the door. What is wrong with you?"
So, Patrika,
and why was the dog tied up?
Very quickly, you're going back to Days of Our Lives. You've been gone for 10 years. How did they explain where you've been, and how are you coming back?
Well, and the last thing at the end of our Good Gay story, which was just, 2 years ago, I think, I went off to New York with the guy that we tried to get killed by the nurse. Listen, I mean, I've been married, then my husband's gay, then I went with a killer, and now I'm back with the guy that I started off killing. And, anyway, so I've been living in New York.
Okay.
With this man, well, not living with him, though we date an awful lot. But maybe there's some slap and tickle. I really don't know. But it's very fun. Yeah, for soap operas. But I'm coming back to introduce my daughter, Joy.
Yeah.
And Joy is the daughter we had to save Chloe's life when she had leukemia.
Okay.
So, and she now resents us constantly, the fact that she was just born to save her life, which we keep saying, no, I mean,
right,
this is not what happened, and we love you even more. So stop thinking that you're not the best daughter.
Right.
And then I leave town again. Who knows? I may be back again. I don't know. And
we'll see who she runs away with next time.
Right. Oh, Patrika, this has been a delight. Thank you so much, and continued success. I mean, the next time we chat, let's just have another page on that resume, shall we?
You got it. Thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate it.
Patrika Darbo, thank you very much. All right, everybody, stay with us. This is Kerrigan and Company. The holiday season is just around the corner. Before all those family gatherings and holiday parties, you'll want to spruce up your home. Let me suggest that you start with updating your lighting. It can make all the difference when you're entertaining. The folks at Lucia Lighting Design in Lynn can help you achieve the perfect atmosphere, whether it's soft, welcoming lighting in the dining room or a workstation in the kitchen. Owner Lucy Dearborn and her team can make suggestions and guide you through the process. If you can imagine it, the experts at Lucia Lighting Design can make your dreams come true. Learn more at lucialighting.com. That's lucialighting.com.
If you like rum, you're going to love Rumson's Rum, New England's most award-winning rum brand. Rumson creates distinctive and savory flavor profiles by hand-selecting and marrying the finest barrel-aged Caribbean rums. The spirits are then blended and finished in the New England Rum House. Choose from Rumson's Gold, Spiced, Grand Reserve, or Coffee Rum, which is smooth and sweet with a warm roasted coffee flavor, a hint of vanilla, and a decadent buttery finish. Find Rumson's at liquor stores or ask for it at your favorite restaurant. Learn more at rumsons.com. That's rumsons.com. Rumsons. Life lived, life enjoyed.
This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to us by Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater. Get tickets to Titanic the Musical, playing October 29th through the 10th of November at nsmt.org. Welcome back, everybody, to Kerrigan and Company. Well, we had a ball with Patrika. She was just terrific. And now, believe it or not, we have another actor. We're lucky enough to have another
You're
today.
really doing the Boston is Hollywood thing here.
I know. We've got the Hollywood connection going on. And this one, by the way, this is a homegrown boy, I want you to know. Tom Schanley is with us. Tom is originally from Manchester by the Sea. I didn't know anybody was from Manchester by the Sea, by the way, Tom. I had no idea that was the case.
Only the really beautiful people.
Only the beautiful people.
To be honest with you.
Well, I have to say, I wasn't born in Manchester. They don't have a hospital there.
Right,
so.
And it wasn't by the sea back then. The by the sea was added later.
I got to be honest with you. It's tough sometimes for me to still say Manchester by the Sea. I feel a little odd about that. It was always Manchester to me growing up.
Well, Tom's got some great stuff coming up, and we're going to talk about that. And he's on an episode of NCIS coming up in November, which is certainly not the first time that he has appeared there. But we'll chat about that in a second. But first, let's just talk about your background here in Massachusetts. You did grow up here in the state. Tell us a little bit about, how you ended up in theater being here in Massachusetts.
Well, to be honest with you, I wanted to be an actor since I was 16 years old. Manchester had a great community summer theater program for kids, and I got involved in that. It was called Summer Show back then. It's called Summer Stage now. And so I jumped in there, and it was kind of there that I fell in love with it. And And actually, you want me to jump into a story here.
Oh, please do.
I actually connected with the North Shore Music Theater in 1979, and I have a 45-year history with them with a 40-year gap. So let me explain how that worked. So in 79, my school had a program where if you take your last semester, do something related to the field you wanted to go into. I wanted to be an actor, piece of cake. I apprenticed there. Now, they brought in a production of Hamlet from New York. Among the cast was a pre-famous Kelsey Grammer, who was playing Laertes. And so I was an apprentice. It was a fantastic experience. I didn't know at that time what a unique theater North Shore Music Theater was, how famous it was in the region, because that was just the theater we went to, right?
Right.
So we had a great time. And so flash forward 40 years later, 2019, I end up doing a film with Kelsey Grammer. And walk on the set, and Kelsey's very gracious, very nice to meet you. I said, oh, well, Kelsey, we go back about 40 years. And I proceeded to remind him of this production, which he remembered like that.
Wow.
So we reminisced about that experience. So that made it kind of, that full circle made it kind of really a special film to shoot. But as a result of that, I'm back home in Manchester, talking about this, and a friend of mine knew the Erica Brown, who's the editor of our local paper, the Manchester Cricket. She thought it would be a great human interest story. So who does she hook me up with? But with Karen Nescambeni over at the North Shore Music Theater. And before we started this, we were talking about what an extraordinary woman Karen is. And she's become a good friend of my wife and I now. And so now I feel like I'm home there. I got a chance to get to know Bill Henny a little bit. Right. And so I feel like I'm part of the family again 40 years later.
So Tom, you grew up here, as we said. And of course, Kelsey Grammer has Boston ties on TV. The Boston thing has become so popular in Hollywood. I mean, Ben Affleck uses it, and Matt Damon. So, did you ever think you were going to be typecast as the Boston guy, especially with the Boston accent?
Well, actually, I never. I mean, whatever little accent I had, I lost pretty quickly. But if you stop me with a couple of beers, I can start talking like this at any time.
You can leverage that. Apparently, they pay big.
I'm happy to come
real.
Back and do this for you.
They pay big for those Boston accents, especially when there's a lot of mayhem, right?
Correct.
You know what, Tom? We need to get you on the reboot of Frasier. Because now there's a reboot, and he's here in Boston, back in Boston. And with an accent like that, you can do that.
It's a good show. So I've said I love that show. That was one of the most brilliant. The original Frasier was one of the most brilliant shows ever on television.
I have to tell you that there's a comedian, Jimmy Dunn, who lives here in Boston, and Jimmy is a regular on the reboot, and he was here on the podcast 2 weeks ago, and that drew me.
I'm sorry, Moose?
He plays Moose, exactly. Yeah,
Terrific.
And it's very fun. So I'm getting you on there. I'm going to work on that. Would that be okay with you?
I like your attitude.
Then you get a cameo too.
And then I'm going to get a cameo with you. Yeah.
We'll all do it together. Great.
We've got to talk about NCIS though. You found out something about that is pretty amazing. Share that with our listeners and our viewers.
Well, I can't take credit for finding that out. That's my wife.
Okay.
She's down there in the internet. She finds a lot of stuff. If you ever need to look something up, you talk to me. I'll get it done for you. She came across this fact that apparently I am the actor who has done more NCISs in the franchise than anyone in the history of actors. I'll take what I can get, right? And I think it's because I go back to JAG, which was the precursor to NCIS. I did a couple of those episodes. So,
absolutely.
And then you also did a lot of CSIs, and I'm noticing a pattern here, a lot of corpses. So shall we ask, how many times have you been whacked?
Well, I've taken my share of bullets. Let me put it that way. They don't always kill me, but I'm always on the ground, bleeding usually, arrested. I've been a corpse about 4 times, a lot more times than I'm arrested.
There you go.
And we should tell people this is not easy. I know we joke about the corpse is the main role, but it takes a lot of discipline to be completely still.
You know what? You joke. But I'm going to tell you another little anecdote. I did years ago a remake of the story of the Alamo. And of course, in the Alamo, everybody is wiped out. Okay, so there's this one scene, nothing but dead bodies. Okay, and my girlfriend has to walk through the corpses to find me. Now, back in the day, the blood was made from corn syrup, red corn syrup. So you're trying to be still with the blood, and the flies start coming. And they're landing here, and they're landing here.
They have a lot of protein, apparently.
To get that right.
No kidding.
So you're 100% right about that.
I do want to tell you, though, I have been doing a little research on you and looking back, and I am fascinated, Tom, by the many different looks that you have and the different accents that you have had through the years and the different kinds of characters that you've played. You really have been a wide-ranging actor.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of what can be fun about being the journeyman actor. The guy who's in a lot of different things. That guy from that thing, right?
Right.
But yeah, it gives you kind of a wide berth of stuff to do.
Yeah, it's really great.
Tim,
it's
you
really good.
asked Patrika if she had a favorite role, and you said it was difficult, like a favorite child. So let's ask you, because you've been in so many things. You've also been in Melrose Place, ER, Criminal Minds. Did you have a favorite role that you can share with us?
Okay. Yes. It's really difficult to pin that
right.
down.
It's like it's a favorite kid, right?
My first role was among my favorites because I got a series right off the bat. It was called The Yellow Rose, which I'm going to say, even though it's not official, is the precursor to Yellowstone. Because it was about a working ranch in Texas. It was on the heels of Dallas and Dynasty, those old soaps in the nighttime soaps in the 80s. And we had people like Sam Elliott and Sybil Shepherd and Susan Best. So that was a big favorite. But if I'm going to really go with my favorite role, they tried to reboot the $6 Million Man way back in 1986. Yeah. And so I got to play Steve Austin's son, who, of course, as soon as he gets into an airplane, crashes and has to be rebooted.
And then needs extra parts.
Exactly. So I got to be bionic for a time. And that was a lot of fun because I grew up watching that show.
Yeah, that's
just
so good.
From that standpoint, I think that's one of my favorites.
Well, you've got tell us about this episode that's coming up in November. You've got another one coming up.
It's November 11th.
Yeah.
NCIS, a nice role, good folks over there. I did this particular, this has been on for 22 years, so I did an episode like 15 years ago of this same show. But, so they brought me back on it, and it was a great experience. So, it's on the 11th.
Fantastic. Can you give us any insight, or will you live to see the end of the show?
Oh, yeah, I will. I play a guy from the CIA.
Okay, good.
Like, NCIS is stepping on our toes, and... that's going to flop.
So in other words, he may leave to see the end of the show. He may live to see the end of the show, but other characters
Somebody else may
because
not.
of him.
Tom, what else is in your future? What's coming up?
Well, actually, we're my partners and I are in the process of developing a TV series, which we're actually out shopping right now, and it actually takes place in Boston. We're staying to our roots in the 90s, so we're in that process, and it is a process. Us and 300,000 other people are developing shows, but it keeps your creative juices flowing, and we've got a little bit of interest, so we'll see where that goes. But it's a lot of fun to work on.
And any chances that you may come to the North Shore Music Theater and do something there?
I can tell you something. I would love to do that. I will say that they really angle toward the musical,
right?
And I left my musical chops back in college somewhere. So,
well, bring along Kelsey Grammer. He can hold a tune. Bring along Kelsey Grammer again. He can hold a tune.
Yeah, he can hold a tune. Yeah, I'll bring him along. He can. I'll mouth the words. He can sing them.
Well, one final question about the area, though. Do you get back very often? Do you ever come back and see?
Yeah, I'm there all the time. Actually, my dad still lives in the house I grew up in. My brother is in town as well, so we're back at once in the summer usually, and over the holidays we'll be back at Christmas time. So yeah, we never leave that far behind.
That's great. That's great.
Much. Yeah, I love it there.
You need to come back to make sure your Boston accent is in working order.
Yeah.
You know what? I will do that for you. I'm gonna come back.
Especially if you're pushing a show that's, maybe that's the way to stand out. When you're pushing it, you have to use that accent, right? When you're talking to those TV execs. Tom, this has been a treat. Thank you so very, very much. We'll be looking for you on November 11th, and we thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. You guys
Absolutely.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks very much. We hope we can see you back here. All right. You bet. Thanks, everybody. And stay with us, everybody, because you're listening to Kerrigan and Company.
North Shore Music Theater proudly presents Titanic the Musical. Winner of 5 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. A stirring show focusing on the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of the real people aboard the most legendary ship in the world. This all-new magnificent production of Titanic the Musical is on stage at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater from October 29th through November 10th only. Tickets at nsmt.org.
Wouldn't it be great to have those full cheeks you had when you were younger, but not have to go through a major procedure to get them? Well, cheek fillers at Sienna Aesthetics in Beverly are a non-surgical cosmetic procedure that can help enhance facial contours, restore lost volume, and improve facial symmetry. They're an effective way to rejuvenate the appearance of your face with minimal downtime. Sienna's experienced injectors can customize treatments to meet your goals. For a free consultation, set up an appointment at siennaesthetics.com. That's siennaesthetics.com. This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to you by Sienna Aesthetics Medical Spa. Take years off your face with the very latest technologies at Sienna Aesthetics in Beverly. Well, it's that time when we wrap things up here on Kerrigan and Company, and Janet Wu has been keeping me company today. We've had all kinds of Hollywood types with us. I feel like I've been with 3 stars.
Oh, I feel we've been with
and
one
Tom
big
and
star.
you.
You actually
great
too.
fun. Hey, we do this thing each week. It's called the College Hype Fast 5. Mm-hmm. So it's rapid fire, 5 questions, and if you are ready, ma'am, I thought we would do that.
Okay.
Does that sound good for you? College Hype, making a difference, 1 T-shirt at a time. Visit collegehype.com today. All right, here we go. Most exotic place that you have ever traveled?
Afghanistan.
Ooh. Most interesting person that you've ever interviewed?
The Dalai Lama.
What type of candy do you give out on Halloween?
Snickers. And I eat most of them myself.
Don't we all? Tell me what's a hidden talent you have that people don't know about?
Well, you mentioned writing. I actually really love to write. I wanted to be a magazine editor. So I would say that is a talent. And then I also love music. I will never be good enough to be on any stage, but I love music.
You also speak numerous languages. I'll just throw that in. And favorite actor or actress?
Oh, I would say maybe because she just passed, but I went back and looked at what Maggie Smith has done. And she is hilariously funny, plus serious and able to really capture the language of any script that she has.
You know what I love about her? Good job, by the way, and I want to give you your T-shirt. You know, one of the things I loved about her is that she certainly lived a lot of decades, but she stayed working throughout. And so young people who love Harry Potter know who she is. And then people who have watched, so many other things. So here is College Hype gives that out to everybody and says thank you for your Fast 5. So thank you, my
color.
dear.
I love
there you
purple,
go.
too.
And purple to boot. We mentioned in the Fast 5, the most exotic place that you've ever traveled. You are the single most traveled person that I know. And what I think is so fascinating is that you do travel sometimes alone to some really exotic, crazy places.
Yeah, at this point, depending on how you count it, I've either been to 92 countries or 87. And the reason why I say that is different apps count countries differently. Some will not count Scotland, Taiwan, the Vatican as countries. But I'm trying to make it to 100. And you're right, I do travel by myself, partly because sometimes people won't go with me to these places. But also I find that when I travel alone, I get more out of it because I don't have people to remind me of home. I have to really be where I am.
Well, it's so interesting because I know you have said to me that you go and you meet people along the way and you have no problems with that, which I think is fantastic, which I think has to have enhanced many of your experiences, the people that you've met.
Definitely, because people who go to some of these places. When you ask me my favorite place or most exotic, it's hard to choose because I love Bhutan as well, and Pakistan's beautiful. I've been many places in Africa, but the people that go to explore these places, they're a different kind of person.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit like me, maybe a little bit edgy. You wonder sometimes, is this a great idea? But when you go there, you realize you get so much because the world is a vast place. You are reminded we are more alike than we are not. And you just realize that there are so many beautiful things that have been developed through all these cultures around the world.
One of the places I know that you have visited a number of times, and one of the very first times was back in the late 70s, is your father's homeland, and that's China. So Janet does a lot of writing, and through the years she has penned a lot of essays and written a lot of articles about your Chinese heritage. Dad, as you put it, was the only immigrant in the household.
Yes, he was the only immigrant. I am fully Chinese, but my mother was born and raised in Philadelphia. Her mother was also raised in Philadelphia. So I didn't really get Chinese culture from my mother's side. My father, on the other hand, was in boarding school when the whole country just went through all of the troubles and war and, civil war as well as external war. And so he was abandoned, basically. He was the only one out of his family that left. And the essay that you're talking about, really the first thing that I ever published ended up in the New York Times. And it was an essay after I realized I did not know I had a grandmother in China because my father had no contact with family there. It was only after an absence of 35 years, after Nixon went to China, that my father actually was able to communicate, and we found out that we had this whole family. And then after that, it became my family's mission to go back as often as we could, which was not possible that frequently, to be with this family. So I only got to meet my grandmother 4 times during her life, and those 4 times became so meaningful to me. And I share this story with many of my other friends because whenever they take their own relatives for granted, I said, it's not this way around the world. There are many families, and not just China, but we've seen this many, many places. We see this in Eastern Europe now. We see this where there are wars, where people are separated.
Absolutely.
And it's so sad.
And they can't get back, and they cannot get out. And so these families are separated forever. Yeah, I was fascinated by some of the things that you penned. The story about you going back as a child and being sort of shocked. But you thought you were going to go there and it would be Disneyland for you.
Yep.
It would be something so, and the culture was so different, even though you had been raised in a household where, your father had been born and raised there.
So I had fantasies of like incredibly delicious Chinese food, and I would feel like I fit in because I was raised in Miami, and there certainly were not a lot of Asians when I was growing up. So I thought, this will be the place where I belong. And it was quite the opposite, because at that point, very few outsiders were let in, and they knew right away we were Westerners, and the food was not anything that we were used to. But again, it goes back to that sort of age-old theme that we sometimes feel like outsiders, no matter where we are, and sometimes we feel like we belong, but you just don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you been back as an adult now and had the chance to sort of, see any of that family and experience the culture at all?
Yes, so I have been back as often as possible.
I know you said you met your grandmother 4 times, but
met my grandmother, but unfortunately we don't really have a lot of family left there now.
Right.
And what's interesting about Chinese is that a lot of them have left and gone all over the world. So believe it or not, I had family that lived for a while in Saudi Arabia, a lot of family in Indonesia and Hong Kong, Singapore, and most of them now in the States for the last 100 years. But I love traveling in Asia because, again, when I was growing up in the States, even though I'm Chinese by heritage, that was the most exotic place to me. And not just China, but Japan, everywhere in Asia, Korea, Cambodia, I've been. And I just feel that magic. And also the incredible history around all these countries.
Absolutely. What do you think is the one single thing growing up here in the States that was different for you because Dad was from China?
Well, definitely in Miami, I felt I did not belong. it was only when I came to New England where there are definitely a lot more Asians here, and especially in Boston because all the schools attract them. And I mean, if you walk through MIT and Harvard and Wellesley and everything, you see, well, diversity in general has grown everywhere. But I think that it gave me a sort of resilience, and it also gave me a lens that affects my travel, that I just, again, always look for those things that we have in common. I mean, everyone, everywhere loves great food.
Yeah.
You know, that pretty much every society has developed great food, developed great music, developed great art. I was joking with someone that they seem to have developed great beer. Well, wine is not everywhere. It seems like every culture has beer. I even found that in Bhutan and in Africa. But you just realize that people have the same passions.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I was always fascinated with stories of your travels and pictures of exotic places that I have never been. And I remember that you went someplace, and right now I can't remember where it was, but you had walked like 30,000 steps in one day.
Yeah.
Because you had done so much walking and, just crazy things like that.
I almost approached a Kim Kerrigan gym day.
Yeah, no.
My record was 44,000 steps, and the reason why is because there was no other way to get around.
Right.
I mean, it's not as if you can hop on the escalator or hop on the
Uber was not coming to pick you up to get you.
Neither was the bus or the T or anything. They were all not coming. But, I was saying when you're forced to walk, boy, do you notice things around you. And this is why I realize the people in the olden days, I just got back from Portugal not too long ago. They all did these long journeys, right? They did the name is escaping me, but when you walk and walk and walk, and you need to find the final destination, you notice everything along the way.
Oh. And that's why they do it. It's a pilgrimage, right?
The pilgrimage,
absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah. A pilgrimage makes you stop and smell the roses, if you will, right? What's the future for you?
Well, I'm going to continue to work on the longevity projects, but you mentioned writing, and I revealed that when I was growing up, we talked about the actors when they found out they wanted to be actors. I never thought about being on TV, and definitely not on the radio. I thought I was too petite. I wanted to be a writer. So I think now what's going to happen is we're all multi-platform these days, as you have proven. I want to write more essays. That is what I have found is really my thing. Is writing essays. When I go back and reread things, I reread my favorite classic books, but I often reread favorite essays and things that have been written that have kind of a kernel of truth that's universal to all of us.
Sure. Well, listen, I can't wait because I'll tell you, over the last few days, I've read many things that you've penned, and you're a terrific writer, so I'll look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'm so glad you could be part of the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for allowing me to occupy this seat anytime. It's always fun to see you and
It's always great to see you as well. And it's good to have all of you with us here on Kerrigan & Company. Be sure you follow us on social, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Kerrigan & Company. To find out who will keep me company and be my co-host on the next episode, be sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Kerrigan & Company is recorded at the Big Night Studios at the TD Garden in Boston. You can view the podcast on YouTube and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure you tell a friend. The executive producer of Kerrigan & Company is David Thompson. Our engineer is Peter Hurley, and our social media managers are Grace Kerrigan, Colby Thompson, and Riley Thompson. See you next time.